What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the second episode of the A2B series. I'm your host, Isaiah, CEO of Evron, and I'm here with my co-founder and CEO of Evron, Chalique. And boy, do we have a treat for you today. As promised in the first episode, Chalique, did we not tell them that they were going to get some value? We had some big players coming to the podcast.
Yeah, we actually lied. We actually said it wasn't going to happen until maybe the fourth or fifth episode. But Christmas came early this year. So, so today we have a special guest, an advisor, a mentor, actually a friend of ours as well, Nick Tippmann. So, Nick, I don't know if you want to give a little explanation of how you got here with us, but by all means.
Yeah, thanks, Chalique. Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. Excited to be on the podcast. Thanks for having me. I know we're gonna have a ton of fun here today. Just a quick background about myself. Right now, I'm an investor and an advisor and a mentor, like you mentioned. Previously, before that, I was an operator and an entrepreneur. I was CMO at Greenlight Guru and part of the founding team there. We were a B2B SaaS company focused on medical device companies. So we help med device companies get approved by the FDA and keep them on the market, keep them compliant, keep quality once they did get their devices approved. And had a really great run there. Was there almost 9 years, which is pretty crazy to think about looking back now. But yeah, man, we bootstrapped it from basically nothing. I was the first employee and got it up to tens of millions in ARR, and then was able to bring on a capital partner in private equity for $120 million with JMI Equity back in 2021, and had a great ride with them. So it was fantastic, and was able to step away. It was my time back about 6 months ago or so, and have really focused in on the investing front and on the advising, and that's how we're here.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a long talk, right? So how about we dive into what was Nick like before you even got to Greenlight Guru?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a little bit of my background, like I grew up I'm an entrepreneur at heart. Like grew up wanting to be an entrepreneur. Dad, grandpa were entrepreneurs, kind of small business, manufacturing type entrepreneurs, and I grew up like jumping in ponds, getting golf balls out of them, selling them on the side of the golf course, like doing lemonade stands, like buying fake Oakleys online, selling them out of my locker. Of course, letting everybody know they were fake, but we'll keep that between us, right? But no, so yeah, just grew up wanting to start businesses. Went to college, studied entrepreneurship and marketing. And then my senior year, kind of found tech startups, fell in love, and like knew that this is where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do with my career. And was able to get into a startup accelerator. That was over a decade ago now, which is pretty crazy to think. Had 3 learning experiences, as I like to say now, 3 different startups over about three years. Was able to sell the last one, but really just kind of soft landing for what we had into it. But yeah, man, a lot of trials, a lot of errors, a lot of learnings, a lot of failures. And then landed at Greenlight Guru, and it was a great ride. So
you were the first marketing hire for Greenlight Guru, or the first in the marketing department, right? So how about we go way back 9 years ago. And what was your first day like as a marketing? Yeah, what was your first day like?
Wow, first day. That's a good one. So I actually originally joined as a marketing consultant for the company like a month or two after they joined. My first day with the company, we actually went to a trade show. And it was a startup event in Indianapolis with startups, investors, potential customers, and it was a really validating moment for me, as our CEO and founder David Ram liked to say, like people were just coming up to the booth like foaming at the mouth, like there was a big demand for this product and this idea that him and John Spear put together and David Omark had helped to start build, and It was a cool experience for me to get to see the response from the market on day one, which just got me fired up.
Yeah, so you coming into it, because you said you studied marketing, right? So when you came into it, what were your expectations? And then, like, was there a moment where you like, okay, like, I'm not ready for this?
Yeah, no doubt. There definitely was a little bit of imposter syndrome and a little bit of worry of like, hey, can I do this? Can we do this? Yeah. That being said, though, my experience, one of the startups that I did before Greenlight Guru was a media company focused on startups and entrepreneurs outside of Silicon Valley. And that was a media property, which really allowed me to learn like online marketing, SEO, content, email marketing, really event marketing. We hosted conferences, like Forbes named our conference in 2013 a must-attend event for entrepreneurs, the event we had in Cincinnati. But running that media company really gave me the tools and the skill set and the experience that I needed to run Greenlight's marketing department, because this was early 2014, and now it's a lot more common wisdom that like every company's a media company, right? You guys hear that all the time, especially in B2B. Like, you need to be a media company.
Every company should be a media company.
Every company should be a media company. Yeah, it's great advice. They should. It's not just like a trend or an idea. But so we were a little. I just kind of lucked into that to a degree, that I just run a media company, and this were kind of the trends. And once I got in there, I kind of saw we could run the same playbook and use a lot of the same ideas and a lot of the same patterns that we did to grow an audience at the media company, just focused on a different persona at Greenlight.
So twofold question. The first one, I want us to go back to like sticking a pin on your first day of a trade show. What is your conventional wisdom for how trade shows were done before, and how you think they, like, what's the right way, or like what are some best practices for how B2B companies should be approaching trade shows now?
Yeah, 100%. So this was, I use the word trade show loosely and lightly. This is more like a startup showcase, I would say. So a little bit different flavor on how we were preparing, but the idea was similar. Like, you need to know who's at the event. Is your ICP, your ideal customer profile, going to be there? Are you going to prospect? Who do you want to meet? You got to have a game plan before. Once you're at the show, executing the game plan, getting out there, talking to people, and then making sure you document all that so you can follow up afterwards.
So I'm going to go down just one more little rabbit hole. Yeah. So ICP is a big topic that we always talk about, but how would you say B2B SaaS companies should identify their ICP? Like, is it they start the company, like if we're talking 0 to $1 million, like let's say, do they start with the ICP, or should they kind of go wider, then kind of refine their ICP over time? Like, how do you think like they should go about like validating and identifying their ICP?
Yeah, it's a great question, and really important, and one of the first things that you should do to really set the foundation for your marketing for B2B SaaS companies in particular. So in that 0 to 1 phase, like the founders really have a hunch, right? Like they didn't start a company like that. I guess maybe some have a product and they're searching for you, but most of the time the entrepreneurs and the founders that I see and I'm working with have an idea of who their potential ICP is going to be. And then really in the early days, it's all about like, how do you validate that? So do your research, figure out their wants, their needs, their fears, their desires, their pain points, their motivations. Really get to know who you think your potential ICP is. Interview them, talk to them, embed yourself in their workflows, in how they do things. And then from there, you want to take that, put together your positioning, put together your messaging. And then once you have your messaging and you have something that you can put out to the world, now it's time to start testing, right? Now it's time to start experimenting. So how can we run fast tests to understand, is this resonating? Is it matching with the audience? Are we getting them to take the next desired action that we're looking for? And then hopefully, are they actually signing up for the product, purchasing it, and getting value and long-term value? I know depending on how early the company it is, it's not like you have 10 years of historical retention data or anything, but you can look at things like NPS and customer satisfaction score to kind of hopefully get some of those leading indicators of whether or not they're getting value with your product.
So let's take that back to your story, right? As far as from your first day when you
Yeah.
came in? So what were your goals like?
Yeah.
Like what was your first goal? You were like, okay, I need to like validate ICP, or was like, okay, I need to get to $1 million like as fast as possible. So what was the first thing you was like, okay, we need to figure this out first. Let's hit this goal, and then from there we can start to actually scale.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic question. This is a lot of fun going back through memory lane on a lot of this stuff, because it relates so well to the ICP and the messaging comment that we just had. Like when I started at Greenlight, like I said, the company was just a couple months old at the time, and really when I came in, we had a name, Greenlight Guru, and a website that said something like "coming soon."
Yeah.
So we're starting fresh. Now, don't get me wrong, founders had a ton of thoughts, ideas, that this stuff documented in different places, things that I could go pull on, case studies, customers that they talked to already. But it was information gathering. So it was going and talking to the founders. It was reading what they did have. It was going and having conversations with potential customers. We were pre-product launch at that time as well. So we're really just searching. You're trying to learn, and then you gather all that information, kind of put it in those topics that I mentioned earlier, and then figure out your positioning, get your messaging, and I can still remember putting together that first website and writing all that messaging and writing that copy, and what a cool experience that was, and like how awesome it was to get that first website out there and get the message. But it's like, is it good? I don't know. Like let's see.
So how do you transition? So from gathering the information for your ICP, and you think that your ICP is now verified, right? And as we know, that's not usually how it works. So let's even take a deeper dive. What was that first campaign like? What was the objective of that first campaign that you hit publish on?
Yep, a great question, and a great point there, Chalique, on the fact that your ICP, you're never kind of done on that. You're always exploring. You're always figuring, like, Greenlight's 250 employees now, and when I left, and I know we were still always constantly validating, looking at our ICP, getting more segmented, going wider, like what is it? But so when we got that first messaging done, got that first website out there, you're looking for both qualitative and quantitative research. And so I was sending it to people, talking to people at the company, the founder, talking to those prospects, and like literally sitting next to them and getting their feedback. Like, what do you think about this? Like, you can do that, like do things that don't scale in the beginning, like just talk to people. But then the first way that we tried to quantify whether it would work or not was doing some paid ads testing. And so I get a little preachy here. One of the things I used to say in all of our marketing onboarding classes is there's two goals of marketing. All marketing, doesn't matter B2C, B2B, what business to human, like doesn't matter. You're managing perception or changing behavior. And changing behavior can be as simple as getting someone to click on a link or to sign up for a demo form. So that initial test was, let's go to, I think it was on Google at the time. Today maybe I'd probably use LinkedIn, but go out there, put our initial ad out there, put our initial landing page out there with our website, with our copy, and try to get people to sign up for a demo, get them to fill out that form and want to learn more, and look at the audience to see if it matched and kind of follow and go from there. But yeah. So
how did that campaign go?
It's a great question.
And
I
actually,
don't know.
So to add to that, and actually how did it go, and what metrics were you looking at for success, right? Because when you're validating ICP, this is kind of how we view it, is especially messaging, right? So, and I believe I said this in the video on LinkedIn. So I believe click-through rate is definitely a metric that gets underlooked. And that's a big metric, like honestly, because it tells you if your messaging is resonating with your audience. So were you measuring things like click-through rate, or you were I just want demos. I want demos booked today.
Yeah, it's a really, really great point. I believe you have to have a North Star goal. So I think that we were measuring conversion rates, without a doubt. We were also measuring page views and clicks, but the North Star metric for that campaign was what was the conversion rate on that page to to sign up for the demo. So that's what we're looking at. And to your point, the conversion rate, like, is it 1%? Not really resonate. Is it 20%? And then what are the benchmarks for a good demo conversion? And I was trying to measure that, and it's hard to get that data and whatnot. But the next step, though, that wasn't what our learning was, is that wasn't enough. Because you got them to sign up for the demo, but what happens next in the sales process? Are they a good fit? What happens when they get on that first call with you and you do some discovery and you tell them about here, like, do they move forward? So it's not just measuring the leads, the MQLs, the demo requests, but we really, all the way literally from day one, we're looking at how does that flow all the way through the funnel and eventually turn to revenue. Now, it's hard, especially in the early days, to put only the revenue metric on that. Like, you're going to be losing a lot of learnings if you go all the way down the funnel. That's too far down the funnel for this test. But I think for that test, we looked at how many signed up and then how many actually showed up for that first call, which we called an orientation call. And so we measured how many orientation calls we got out of
So just taking a step back, so because you said you were going basically through a due diligence process when you first got the green light. And I know for some founders at like these SaaS companies, like if they're bringing a marketing person on, they want results today. So like, how did you align, or how did you like get the philosophy to be like, hey guys, I need to do my due diligence, whether it takes 30 days, 60 days, like I have to set the right foundation before we press play on anything?
This is a great story again. Yeah, appreciate it, Isaiah. This is a fun one. So, we initially started off running those paid tests, and we really wanted to experiment, but we learned pretty quickly that we weren't going to be able to scale from that only at the beginning. We needed to look at other channels. We needed to look at our product and our channel and see like what was the potential fit. And so with Greenlight, we were targeting at that time small SMB, small medtech companies. And we kind of looked at the market, talked to other people, and right around that time, like HubSpot was really big and really popularizing the inbound marketing philosophy. And I was kind of a student of it, and kind of looked and thought like maybe no one else in this industry is doing any like modern content marketing, any thought leadership, and thought there was an opportunity there. And so that was kind of the next channel that we looked at after paid. And then sorry, I lost the train of thought a little bit there, but then how we thought about talking with the founders and getting enough time to be able to get there was a great story and a lot of fun. It was hard. It was a little bit contentious, if I'm being honest. John Spear, co-founder of Greenlight, great friend, love him to death. Now, at the time, about 6 months in, he wanted to fire me.
Wow.
This is a good story, but it was for that exact reason, because I was pushing back really hard that we weren't ready to publish yet. Mm-hmm. We didn't know. We didn't know yet. We hadn't ran enough tests. We weren't ready. Maybe there's some wisdom out there that said we should have just launched and got it out there and whatever, but I felt like we had more refining to do until we really launched our content strategy to the world and built our email list. Again, there's a lot of it that's like, just ship it, just get it out there as fast as possible. But I think without doing that due diligence and without doing that learning in the beginning, I wouldn't have known what hypothesis we were testing and what success or success didn't look like. And so that was an education process for both of us. I think I was definitely a little hard-headed, and we eventually ended up getting to the point, and I mean, our John and I's working relationship on the content front specifically ended up being a smash and hit. So, yeah.
So what's your philosophy on benchmarking as far as, revenue being the North Star, but like how important are those metrics, those leading indicators before you get to revenue? Like, revenue might not show up for the first 4 to 6 months if you're a new company, but there are some indicators that are important. So like how important was benchmarking for you?
Yeah. So when looking at any campaign or any project, or if you're putting your OKR, your objectives for the quarter, like you need to measure what the goal is going to be. So I think benchmarking is one way to look at what is your potential goal, and where should you set that. I think it's an important one. I would want to look at the benchmarks and know what good, great, phenomenal that not success looks like. I guess we probably all know what not success looks like, whether it was benchmark or your own view, but you definitely want to know what you're striving for, because that's going to inform like so much of your tactics and your strategy, right? Like if you don't know what those benchmarks are, then what are you shooting for? You're kind of like flying blind, basically. So yeah, I'm a fan of benchmarks, but I can see there's a lot of problem with benchmarks because people use benchmarks that aren't correct for their situation. I'll give an example. I was just talking with an entrepreneur yesterday, and we were talking about some of their unit economics, and we were talking about retention, churn, net retention, and I just had a little misunderstanding around benchmarks around net revenue retention and what the benchmarks in a $3 to $30 million ARR company, which is really my background where I've lived the last, I don't know, however many years, and we're talking at it coming at it from 0 to 3 million. And those are different. And there was just a report published that I landed on last night after the conversation, which was crazy, and sent over to him. It's like, hey, I'm sorry, we maybe had a little misunderstanding here. Here's the actual context. Thanks for that. So that's like one of the areas that you can get caught up with benchmarking too. So going to your philosophy, because we're gonna talk about like 0 to 1 million, that journey there. So like, what's your overall philosophy for marketing? Yeah, so I mean, I mentioned a little bit that I believe the goal and the purpose of all kind of the top level of marketing is managing perception and changing behavior. But some of the principles that I have, and as I think about this and think about it more, like we had marketing principles at Greenlight Guru, and those principles actually changed over time, given the size company that. So we're talking about 0 to 1 here, right? Or 0 to a million in ARR, right? And so the principles that I look for in a marketing team there is speed. Like you just got to move. You got to move fast. Like what's your rate of learning? What's your rate of experimentation? How much are you feeding that learning back into your marketing strategy, back into your product strategy, back to the business? So I think speed is really number one. This may be a hot take, but number two is really around frameworks and patterns and playbooks. And this is probably pretty similar to the bad rap that benchmarking gets, is that people don't use them in the correct situation, right? But you and I, we spent a lot of time together recently, and we've been talking about this. Is like, why wouldn't you start with the template or the framework? Like, why wouldn't you say, like, you don't have to copy it 100%. Like, nothing that worked there is going to work 100% to you. But if you could learn from what they've already learned, like, why wouldn't you? Why would you stare at a blank page? And so I think like the 80-20 rule, using the templates, using the frameworks, and then the third one that I'll say for the early stage companies would be being data driven. You got to know what's working. Like if you don't have your RevOps set up properly, you don't have your tech stack in place, you don't have definitions around what an MQL versus a sales qualified lead versus what an opportunity, like then it's really hard to do number one, which is that fast learning and the hustle, if you don't have the data. So yeah, data driven, I think would be the third philosophy.
So
principle.
I got a question. Again, it's gonna have you thinking on this one. So at that point, 0 to 1 million AR, you're still the only person here at Greenlight.
Yeah.
What book were you reading at that point?
Oh, that's a good question.
Oh, that is a good question. At 0 to 1, I actually don't think I was reading.
Okay.
If I'm being honest, I wish I would have. It was one of the things that, when you're a first marketing hire at a SaaS company, or really first marketing hire at any startup, especially trying to go fast, like there's 1,000,001 things to do, and you got 1,000,000 things on your plate. You're juggling constantly all the time. I used to actually write in my journal that I wish that I had more time to read and to learn, because I knew that I could use that 80-20 principle. Like I knew there were people that had figured this out, but it's like, where do you balance the learning versus the execution when so much needs to get done? So I was reading influence. Like I was a student of HubSpot and their business and their not just inbound marketing, but really how they ran the whole thing. But I couldn't tell you. I could tell you one book I read before I started Greenlight that I really liked and had to learn at the last 3 startups that was The Hard Thing About Hard Things from Ben Horowitz, which is just kind of classic overview of what the entrepreneurial journey is like. And that was a good one to read going into Greenlight, because it's real. Startups are hard.
Yeah, so if you're at 0 to 1 million, definitely read that book. And actually, so I have another question for you, right? So let's talk about transitioning to the second hire, right? Mm-hmm. Or technically the first hire, right? What were you looking for in as one, and two? Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, because I feel like a lot of people in your position that could be listening to this, their ego could get in the way of the success of marketing. So they may avoid hiring somebody that is more experienced than them because of their leadership role, right? So at that point, how did you work on your leadership skills to be able to bring people in, and then what were you looking for when you were bringing somebody in?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and really around the experience and being a first marketing hire. And it's probably, to your point of the second hire, like, it's probably a more nuanced view. I think there's a lot of content written out there about CEOs and founders making their first marketing hire, but there's probably less content out there around first marketing hires making their first marketing hires, right? And this is very interesting and fun to go back and think about. The philosophy and principle that I took was really around gaining expertise. And to your point, like, I hadn't done this before. It was the first time head of marketing at a B2B SaaS company, and I needed to learn. And so I went out there, like I said, I didn't have enough time to read to learn. So how do I get this knowledge another way? I compound by, like, who are the best people in the world that do this? Like, who are the best agencies? Who are the best contractors? And so when we needed a paid media agency, I went and looked, and, like, who's the best in the world at B2B SaaS paid media? And when we needed product marketing, it's like, who's the best at messaging, positioning, testing, branding? And then my philosophy is kind of like, bring those people onto your team and learn as fast as you can with them. Bring them on for a couple years. Like, most of my agency relationships all lasted a couple years. But I also was upfront with them that this isn't my strategy on how I'm going to run paid ads or how I'm going to run product marketing forever. It was going to be a transition period, but I wanted to take all their expertise and their knowledge that they had working across dozens and hundreds of clients and apply that to Greenlight Guru. And then when I was ready to start to build out the team, then I was able to look at the agencies and which one was the most mature, which one did I feel comfortable hiring maybe a more junior resource at that point that can come in, work alongside that agency, that contractor, that consultant, whoever it is, gain some of that knowledge, do a knowledge transfer, and then make a transition and be able to have that person now lead that function.
Okay, yeah, so I think an even a more important question that a lot of people are probably wondering themselves watching this, what was it, a change in responsibility that caused you to hire an agency, or was it like what moment were you like, okay, I need an agency? Was it the revenue that was coming in, or was it just the responsibility, like, okay, I need somebody to take care of this? Or it could have just been simply, maybe I just wanted to learn.
Yeah, all great questions. It was definitely the resource. It was time to scale. It was time to grow. So we kind of talked about that story of beginning, like, getting to the research and holding back on the content a little bit. Right around that same time, I mentioned we built the website. That was the first agency that I hired. I did the copy and everything, but we worked to bring it to life. And so that was kind of the switch. And then I was like, okay, they're doing this piece. Now we're doing content. Oh, this is working. How are we going to scale this? Now, John and I can't do this forever. Like, how do we get a resource in here to help us with our content strategy? And then it kind of went through prioritization of, like, what is next. And so to your point of, like, was it all revenue, or, like, do you need to push? At that time, it was like, yeah, now we need to scale, and now it's this decision: do you hire internally or do you hire externally? And then, because of the reasons that I spoke about before, we did decide to make the hires externally.
Yeah, and clearly that's something you don't regret at all.
No.
So
yeah, and
actually, because this is a long journey in itself. So before we transition to, you know, the 1 to 10 million ARR, I do want to ask you what changed. What were the biggest changes, key changes, as far as the not necessarily company, but the department infrastructure Was it 2 channels that got you to 1 million? Was it one? Like, how did that look?
Yeah, it's a great question. In the 0 to 1 phase, we were really trying to validate what is that first scalable channel. What is that scalable, repeatable channel that we can either put dollars into or put resources into and scale up and kind of get that flywheel going. And that for us was content marketing, content-led community, inbound marketing, many different flavor, but really organic SEO based, driving the content, driving the organic, and then probably somewhere, I don't know, in the 1 to 3 million in ARR range. Maybe 5, probably not 5. I would recommend maybe in the 1 to 3 range. If you feel like you got that, then that's where you bring in the resource, whether that's the agency and they can handle that whole thing, or that's the agency and now it's time to make that first marketing hire to allow them to manage that, which is how we did it at Greenlight Guru, which then allowed me to take my focus elsewhere and focus on growing our outbound channel and helping with our partner channel.
So speaking of that, right before we transitioned to 1 to 10 million, so we were reading the article, the one that you sent us from Stage 2 Capital, about growth and when companies are in that product market fit phase, like the goal of that phase is usually retention, and the conventional wisdom is usually if you have a retention or churn problem, the first place you look is either it's probably product or the onboarding is terrible. But like within the article, and it makes so much sense, and I want to like get your opinion on it. Like sometimes, like in a lot of cases, it's not product or onboarding, it's marketing and sales not targeting the right best fit ICP in the first place, and so they churn because the product could be great if it was applied to the right ICPs. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
That you nailed it. I mean, if you got a leaky bucket, nothing else is gonna matter. But to your point, what's maybe contrary or not as far as like it can be and often is sales and marketing's issue around targeting and around the ICP. I mean, we could get into the details of how we validate that, but particularly in that early stage, in that product market fit stage, it's a team sport. It's a founding team type of sport, and maybe the first couple of hires. But you're sharing learnings, you're sharing knowledge, and you're trying to dial that in. Because to your point, you're trying to figure out, is it the product? Is it the onboarding? Is it the ICP and the messaging? What's the best way to test and validate this? Do we even have enough customers or enough prospects to say that this is statistically significant? And you're making a lot of gut calls, I think, at that point. But I think you're nailing it head on that sales and marketing isn't absolved from potentially being a part of that issue.
Was demand gen important from 0 to 1? Like, for you?
So, demand gen, it's a term. Like,
yeah,
I
feel like it's something that definitely grew within the last year.
Yeah.
So everybody is like a demand
gen expert.
Yeah, they're a demand gen agency, or they even have VP of demand gens now.
Yeah.
Which I don't think was a position a couple years back. So yeah, how did that play a role?
Yeah, I think the evolution of demand gen marketing that maybe started as paid is what people like think of it as, but I think it's really evolved from that, and now you have ABM or ABX approaches. But now I really see it, and you see it a lot of the mature SaaS companies. I see them call this revenue marketing, and that really is a much more encompassing view, I think, of demand gen. And it really depends on the flavor of the company and the size of the company, because content, like in our situation, we were doing thought leadership content that also ranked as SEO, and that was generating demand for it. It was at least capturing our demand for it. Like, we weren't you're trying to get to 1 million in ARR at that time. Like, you're not worried about this or that, or is this really the thing, but you are testing and measuring and looking at the data and seeing what's working and doubling down on what's working and tweaking. So yeah, does that kind of answer your question? Yeah,
basically. It's because I kind of want to know, what was it like as you transitioned from 1 million plus to that 10 million? How aligned was the marketing and sales team?
That is a great question. I think we were extremely aligned. So our CEO led sales for a long time. I guess we probably right around that $1 million mark brought on our first VP of sales, and yeah, I had a great relationship with him. And I think what made that alignment is that we built all of our data models and all of our projections and all of our revenue was lead to revenue from day one. Like just the beginning of the company. I didn't know it was a best practice or not a best practice or fight. Like, again, I said kind of at the beginning thing, like I'm an entrepreneur at heart. It was like, I'm not just a marketing guy who's going to throw over some leads. It doesn't matter. Like I'm a part of this team. Like I'm here, we're here to win. And so it just seemed natural that you have to measure from the top all the way to sales. And so the alignment where there was maybe more contention and where we had to kind of get into the weeds a little bit was more around that ICP. Like, so we're sending over leads, some of them are closing, some of them are not. Our close rate maybe isn't where it wants to be. And that was kind of the first contention around sales and marketing. Is like, why is this close rate not good? Like, is it our sales process? Is it how we do discovery? Is it the product? Is it marketing and the ICP that we're attaching? Like you're trying to figure out all those things. But yeah, I think from an alignment on like goal, like we were always dead solid, but then it was like the why on what if either was something off or even the why when something like totally is a winner on the other end too. You want to know those too. So yeah, I would say I think it's better than most from most of the horror, most of the horror stories that I've heard about. But yeah.
So what was the difference in go-to-market strategy from 0 to 1 to 1 to 10?
Yeah, so it wasn't a ton different. I think you mentioned Mark Robert's Science of Scaling, Stage 2 Capital. I'm fortunate enough to be an LP in their Catalyst program. In his second stage, or stage 2, it's really about scaling. And it's really about scaling that first channel. And so in phase 1, we talked about it was all about product market fit, NPS, retention. In that phase 2, it's really like, how do you find one channel that's working and scale it? And so like, that was really the focus. Again, like call it 1 to 5 was like, how do we scale our inbound channel? But then somewhere between that 3 to 5, we also kind of looking at where we're at, looking at our growth rate, we want to grow faster, where are the opportunities? And that's when we saw, well, clearly there's an opportunity to build an outbound team here. And we also think that our partner program is working pretty well, or our indirect channel, kind of got that spun up out of its, call it MVP phase, and looked at, okay, is there a way to scale this channel? So we were kind of in the 3 channels, inbound, outbound, partner. Marketing was going inbound first, scaling that 1 to 5 or 0 to 5, somewhere between 3 to 5, I said somewhere between 1 to 3, we spun up the outbound or the partner indirect channel and got some initial traction there, saw some good success. And then in 3 to 5, that's when we layered in the outbound, and then we also looked at how could we better resource and scale the indirect channel. And so then right around 5, somewhere between 5 and 10 is where we had all 3 channels up and running, at least you would say.
And so was that the point where you were like, okay, like, yes, we have product market fit, or it took a little bit longer?
How did you know?
I would actually, so these are great questions, and I think there's other people at the company that will answer it, and other people that will have more expertise on the product market fit phase and measuring that. Again, that's really around the retention and the NPS, and I think CS and product organizations have more visibility into that. But when we thought we had product market fit, I don't know, there's some definitions around this. Like people say is like either 10 or 100 like unaffiliated prospects sign up and are getting value from you, or achieve first value, or achieve long term, like however you measure it, you need to measure what value for your product is. But so I think we probably felt like we had the first inklings of product market fit around that 1 million in ARR. That gave us the confidence to invest and double down in that channel and look at other channels.
Got it. So, what would you say is, because you were an entrepreneur and operator, and you've obviously turned investor and advisor, so you've both experienced it and are advising on it. What do you see are some of the top mistakes companies who are between 1 and 10 are making as far as like growing revenue and just scaling the company?
Yeah, top mistakes. There's a lot of flavors to this, but I'll speak from my experience at Greenlight first. one of the things that I wish we had done earlier and would have made things so much smoother, and this kind of goes back to my philosophy, but I wish we'd had our RevOps and our tech stack like buttoned up and tightened up. Like, we didn't ignore it. It was a principle. I wanted to be data driven. Like, we were trying to get it all lined up, but I would have built the systems and processes to allow it to scale. Building the RevOps infrastructure to go from 0 to 1 was one thing. Our mistake, and I think a mistake that I see a lot make, is believing what got you to 0 to 1 is going to get you from 1 to 10. And that's where I wish we would have just built those processes, done better training, and really emphasize at a company level, or at least a sales, marketing, CS team level, the importance of data outside the marketing team, and the importance of keeping CRM fields clean, and the importance of making sure you document everything after your calls. It's just kind of the discipline that you get with a more mature organization. But when you're moving a million miles an hour and things are flying, like, getting your tech stack and your data might not be the most important thing, because you're thinking like, how do I hit this goal this week, this month, this quarter? Not how do I build my revenue system so that when we're at 10 million and not 2 million, that things aren't flying off the fan, or like shit hitting the fan, flying on, like hitting the walls, like going crazy, which inevitably will be your scenario and your case if you do not do the work up front. Now, the kind of crazy part is, like, it's hard to envision yourself there if you haven't been there before, but if you believe you're going to be there, which all entrepreneurs, founders, investors that are in the company believe that they're going to get there,
they should
then
believe
then they need to be doing the work today that's going to set them up for the success when they are there. But again, that's something that I think, with the benefit of hindsight, I only know now.
I have a quick question, right? So what was it like, because I know there's people dealing with this issue, right? So let's say your first channel is LinkedIn.
Okay.
It's going very well. That's where all your revenue is coming from. So your budget is $30,000 a month.
Okay.
How do you know, okay, should I switch to another channel, or not switch, but should I if I get 10,000 more and now my budget's 40,000, should I put that 10,000 towards another channel to try that channel, or should I just double down on what I already have?
Yeah, it's a great question with, I don't think, a definitive answer, but I'll tell you how I might think about it. There's probably some TAM, some sizing. So let's use LinkedIn as an example. You can figure out the audience size. You can figure out what's your reach, what's your saturation, how many times are you hitting that. Like, what's your theoretical budget limit? And then if it's at 30K, I'm not going to double it overnight. Like, I'm going to incrementally tweak it up over a period of months. And so maybe tweak it from 30 to 40 and then watch the results for 2 weeks or a month. And then if it's as good, I'll go from 40 to 50. But then also watching to seeing how, like, do the results get worse? Is our CAC dropping? Is our CAC actually getting better maybe? But I'm doing that. And then it's looking at the goals, looking at the goal of the company, looking where we at, 0 to 1, and like, is now the time that I'm able to pick my head up and take the blinders off and go look at another channel? Or do we still have learning and I mean, there's obviously, in our example, room to scale there, or we're saying that there is, but there probably is other opportunities as well. This is, again, it's a hard one, because you're always balancing focus versus skin. And I think marketers deal with this all over, like, to your point, like, always thinking about that, like, the constant shiny bubble object, especially in marketing. There's so many things you can do, and so many tools, and so many learnings, and so you gotta figure out where you can balance and what's your bandwidth. But that's kind of how I would look at it, is like, what's the potential scale that we could get to here? How do we start levering up to that? And then do either I or my team or the company, are we at the right situation to start looking at those other channels and start experimenting?
Yeah, I think a lot of marketing hires in general, because you were in a very good position coming on so early as a founder. a lot of CMOs don't have that luxury, honestly, because they're probably scared for their jobs. A lot of them are probably scared to try certain things that they may feel would work and very well could work. But I think a lot of them are scared because they're like, okay, I don't know how the team is gonna take this. And sometimes they go to the team and they're like, okay, well, hey, we should try this. We should try demand gen. We should put 50% of our budget towards demand gen. And they're like, no. Like, just no. I'm not going to wait 9 months to see certain results. So, for people that are in that position to where they're iffy on experimenting with certain things, how do you think they should address that to their team?
Yeah, 100%. So, I think as a marketing leader coming into a later stage or a growth stage company is, to your point, much different than being a first marketing hire and building it internally. So I actually personally haven't ever done this, but I've coached and seen the situation quite some time. And I think there's a playbook. Obviously, your first 90 days are really important. But I've really seen two schools of thought on this. Like, some are like, get in there, get your hands dirty, get some quick wins, like get things done, get tactical. But that also could show, like, if you're a real executive, like, that's not what a real executive is going to do. A real executive is going to assess the situation. Now, don't get me wrong, they want to show value. Like, you may be looking for value in the first 30 days. Like, what are your quick wins? What are your low-hanging fruits? Like, what can I update and just move the needle in my first 90 days? But you need to understand the context. Like, what, to your point, like, has the team tried this before? Are you going to piss them off? Are we going to waste $10,000, $50,000 doing something that we've already learned and documented? And so I think that a marketing leader needs to come in and set the right expectations. I think as a marketing leader, you do need to show improvement in the first 90 days, like, full stop. Like, if you come in and you aren't able to do something in 90 days, like, that's a problem, and there should be some conversations as to why. But also, if you're a professional and you're experienced and you're an executive and you're looking to grow, then you know that your job is to think 1 to 2 years out. Like, that's what you're paid to do, and that's what. Now, don't get me wrong, you got to hit the goal. That's the name of the game. But you're also paid to be thinking in the future. And so, if you can't think into the future on that and see how you're going to marry your quick wins to what's going to start generating and be your strategy in 6 and 9 months, that's going to say, like, hey, this is working. Like, then maybe you're going to be, if you don't do that, you're going to be in a world of hurt in 6 to 9 months anyways, because you're not going to be getting the results that you want.
Yeah, and Isaiah, I want your opinion on it as well. I want you to give some advice here, but because I do believe that these are things you should know before you even take the job. As soon as they offer you the job or when you apply for it, these are things you should run by the team before you actually start your first day, because it would cut out a lot of that. It really would. You wouldn't be scared to experiment because you've already spoke about it before you were even hired. And so, Isaiah, what would you say? Because Nick, his strategy was hire experts, and that's how he was able to grow so fast and learn so much. So, are you under that same philosophy?
I am under that same philosophy as far as, bringing in the experts quick, because at that phase, like he said, speed is what you need the most. Like, you don't have time to bring in junior experts because it makes the most sense for Pricer to try and get somebody from a big competitor and get them to align with your philosophy. Like, most of this stuff is context. Like, get the experts. You need to own your strategy before you even bring the experts in. Like, first of all, you need to own your strategy, because if you're bringing in a couple of different vendors from, like, paid social, somebody doing organic, somebody doing SEO, they have different philosophies, but you're supposed to be the center point for your company. So you need to have a strategy and a philosophy that you own for the company, and then they need to fall in place there. Like, they need to just come in and execute on the philosophy that you have. But I'm in full, agreement with, like, bring in the experts, because we need to learn quick. 0 to 1 is like learn, iterate. Not like, let me get my in-house team and scale, because you're not there yet. Like, and some companies make that mistake as far as, like, we're not even at $1 million ARR. Like, we're ready to scale. Like, they think they have like product market fit of like $300,000 like ARR. Like, it's like, nah, dude. Like,
and to even add to that, experts don't always come in the form of agencies, right?
Yeah,
they can come in mentors, consultants, and no one even watching this right now is too good. I don't care if you're at 10 million ARR already, 30 million. You're never too good for a workshop. You're never too good. It only takes one workshop to change everything, and they could take it to a unicorn, right?
110%. Couple of my marketing mentors and people that I read and watched and looked at their stuff and were always just super impressive. G. Cobain and Ganto, they run a firm called Hypergrowth Partners. G just posted this on LinkedIn literally, I think like yesterday, and where he's an advisor at Brex, unicorn growing like through the roof. But he has been a growth advisor there for a couple years now, and has shepherded them through that growth. And he wrote a real detailed post going into like actionable how they do it, really into it. I'd recommend going checking that out either on G's LinkedIn or on Brex. But what he gets into it is about that speed and about the speed of experimentation and rapid learning, and what he's seen through his experience working with multiple unicorns and helping them grow and kind of being that lead growth advisor to your point, is that the ones that win are able to keep that speed and that rapid pace of experimentation at scale.
Yep.
That's the scary. That's what's so hard. And having lived it, I totally know, like the bloat, the weight of the organization, the competing priorities, there's just a million and one things always, and so it's really hard to keep that same velocity and veracity really after like attacking the problem at scale. And so I would go check out what they got, but if back to the principles, if you lay those principles with the team, I think that's how you can help it or influence it at scale. So
earlier you mentioned that the principles changed from 1 million to 10, and from 0 to 1. As we wrap up here, I kind of want to know what principles changed. What was your new principles once you surpass that 1 million ARR? Okay, and it's like, okay, we need to do these things so we can get 10 million plus.
Yeah, I would say the biggest, without getting into the specifics, is that like 0 to 1, it's all about doing and learning and a really small team, and you're just moving fast. Whereas 1 to 10, and as you start to build the team, it is about teamwork. It is about collaboration. It is about how you work cross-departmentally. It is about how your goals and your actions ladder up to the department goals, which ladder up to the company goals, which ladder up to the board goal. Like it's all connected. And as that single marketing hire for a long time that had a lot of agencies, like it's just like do get the shit done, like move fast, throw things at the wall, some will break, some won't, like it doesn't matter, it's just you in there. Like we talked about the relationship with sales, like things are good, don't get me wrong, but it's very much blinders and just execute, whereas those principles definitely started to change. Is like teamwork and collaboration, because at the end of the day, like businesses are people businesses and people are everything, and that's how you win.
So just to wrap it up, let's leave the audience with some wisdom. So like let's talk to somebody who's in your position. Let's talk to the VPs of marketing and CMOs. So like Chalique, let's start with you. Like what would be a piece of advice you would give to like VPs of marketing and CMOs?
Get some help. Get all the help you can. And I'm not just saying this from an Evron perspective. And it's not really even just VPs of marketing. It relates to everybody. Just get as much help as you can. YouTube is free. Find an advisor. You can find someone on LinkedIn. Get some mentors. Join workshops. Workshops are everywhere. Go on Eventbrite and find something that fits you the best, that's around your category. And who knows, you may go there and meet somebody that could be your advisor. The person teaching could be your brand new mentor. So, and from there, that's definitely how I believe you would scale from 0 to 10.
What about you, Nick?
Well, I'm gonna throw it over to you, Isaiah. Actually, what advice are you gonna give to these heads of marketing, VPs of marketing, CMOs?
Context is everything. Like for me, if you break down what marketing is, it's just numbers and words. but you have to put it in context. Like that's the biggest thing for me is you're gonna have an agency, you're gonna have somebody who comes in like, yeah, we're gonna get the messaging down. Like that's the whole point. Like we're gonna get it down, we're gonna get these numbers, but how does it make sense for the context of our business? Like does it make sense for the scale? Like we're at 0 to 1. There's like this messaging strategies, do these numbers make sense for this scale or this phase? Like just put everything within context. Like know that there are frameworks out there that you can use that you don't have to copy verbatim, but take pieces from different frameworks and different companies that have some type of contextual like basis behind it and just make it all make sense for you.
Yeah. Nailed it.
And actually, before you even give your answer, right? This is what we're gonna give Nick some homework. So for people watching, Nick, you're not gonna even say your answer right here. Where can people find your answer?
Oh, I love it. Hit him with the intrigue frame. I love it, Chalique. Oh man, that's really good. Yeah, so you can follow me along and find me on Twitter at ntippmann, Tippmann, and then also on LinkedIn. I'm actually in the middle of doing a 30 posts for 30 days on LinkedIn. Started about 10 days ago, as you guys know, and maybe some in this audience by the time we post it, we'll see. But it's been a fun ride, and yeah, I will. I love that, Chalique. You set me up. I got 30 posts. That's gonna be a fantastic post. But we'll go check out the LinkedIn, and that's where you'll find what these heads of marketing and VPs the tip that I'm gonna leave them with. So hey. Thank you guys. Like
for sure.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, that will sum up episode 2 of our A2B podcast. And
we promised y'all it would be some value this episode. So
go.
Hopefully I didn't disappoint then. I don't know.
We know you didn't.
I need everybody to go tag Nick on Twitter and LinkedIn and tell him come for episode 2. For a second episode. I'm sorry. And then we will see you guys in episode 3.